Thank you for joining us on another episode of CYC for Couples Only. My name is Chris Awad, and this is my wife, Sarah.
And today we have with us Father Antonios Macarios from St. Mary and St. Antonios Church in Queens, New York. Thank you for joining us today, Abuna. Abuna has counseled many couples through all the different family matters they have, and also has a master's degree in pastoral counseling.
Thank you for joining us, Abuna.
Thank you for having me.
We had a lot to talk about in the last episode about communication and the right way to do it. And we're going to watch the same video again and get right back into that discussion.
I got us something to drink.
No, thank you.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. No, thanks. I don't want to drink. Not today.
Va a pegarle Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo!
Enough, I get it.
Wow, you got it?
I'm trying to talk to you and you're not even listening to me.
You really think that's what it's all about?
Yeah, what else would it be about? Why are you ignoring me?
I'm ignoring you?
Yeah, I tried talking to you.
You never want to talk about it, and you ignore me as if I don't exist.
I don't think I do that.
That's even worse. You don't even know what you're doing.
John, wait, sit, let's talk about it.
Now you want to talk about it?
Yes, I do.
Of course, it's when you want to talk about it.
Let's just sit and talk, please.
Listen, if we sit down and talk right now, I'll be very angry, and it's not going to be good. Maybe another time. Or you know what? How about just never?
No, I want to talk about it. We have to talk.
How about tomorrow after dinner?
Yes, fine. Tomorrow after dinner is perfect. I'll let you say whatever you want to say and then I'll respond in the end. Is that okay?
Fine, I like that.
And we're back. Excellent. We saw it, but it's good to see it twice. And Abuna, last time you covered the communication tip that you gave us was to wait. Be slow to get for anger, slow to wrath, slow to speak. I did that in the backwards order, but swift to listen. Yeah. But just taking a separate time, scheduling a time to really dive into the issues. But I think there's a lot of other, and you brought up, Abuna, you brought up a lot of other points that I feel like we could really get into that are also helpful in avoiding and things to be aware of to avoid when we are trying to have a healthy communication. Is there...
So we're basically exactly what Chris said. We're going to get into the pitfalls of healthy communication, because that's the key in order to resolve a fight, a dispute successfully. So Abuna, can you offer us some points on, problems and solutions to healthy communication?
Yeah. I think we're talking about one of the big challenges to healthy communication in such situations when there is a dispute, when we're talking about how the time was not suitable for them to talk about it now, and the husband decided that he cannot talk about it now, and then they decided that they're going to talk about it later on, next day, which was a good thing that they agreed that they cannot talk about it now because they were angry, both of them, they were mad, and maybe they wouldn't be able to listen to each other at that time. So if they decided to postpone it to next day, they will have time to, as we said before, to pray, to read God's word, to still be together and continue the relationship, but to discuss this issue next day and not be as if they are angry with each other and they cannot talk to each other. That's one thing. The second thing is that sometimes, we have seen this in the beginning of the video, that the husband was trying to reach out for the wife and she was trying to avoid talking about anything. And here comes one very big challenge to healthy communication in such situations, which is that I would try to avoid completely discussing the situation. And there are two things: either the avoidant personality, and this type of personality, they want to always avoid talking about issues, no matter what, which is very unhealthy because you're trying to escape from facing the real situations that are happening in your marriage. That's not healthy. You cannot keep escaping from it by avoiding to talk about it, because it's like someone who's got a little sickness, and if he neglects it, it becomes a big thing. Like you have a cold, you neglect to treat it, it turns into pneumonia. That's not healthy. So the avoidant personality is the type of person who wouldn't talk about the issue or face them or deal with them at any time. But there's also another type which is more serious, which is the passive-aggressive personality. And that's dangerous, because the passive-aggressive intend not to communicate to aggravate the other person, to drive him more mad and get him more angry. That's not Christian, that's not healthy, but it might be a type of sickness or disorder in the personality. So it has to be also looked at it this way. So we need to differentiate between those two types concerning avoiding communication.
Abuna, it's very interesting you bring that. I just realized that the avoidance of the people that avoid conflict tend to
facing the conflict.
Facing the conflict.
Because there is a conflict already.
Yeah. So those people and the passive aggressive people, like, they are both feeling that they may not be feeling that that's what they're doing when they're like the person that, I'm not thinking of it necessarily in a marital thing, but I'm just thinking of people that I know, or just in general, like the ones that if there's a conflict that we need to be dealing with, or an issue we need to resolve, and it could definitely be with marriage, I'm trying to respect your boundaries and trying to listen to what you got to do, but we need to address the issue. The avoidant person is feeling that I'm being passive aggressive because I am not addressing the issue, but kind of passive aggressively hinting at.
That's my point, that the passive aggressive intends to ignite the anger of the other person, intends to upset the person. It's not a healthy behavior. Mm-hmm. But the avoidant personality is a type of person that does not like to face the problems, like to escape from them, because they are incapable of dealing with the issues. So they want to escape from them. That's different than that. That's the type of two ways of trying to avoid the communication, the healthy communication. And we want to promote the fact that please try to communicate. Do not avoid communication completely. Do not intend to aggravate the person in front of you by becoming passive aggressive, so that the situation does not get worse. I guess my question,
Abuna, is not, because if you're in the position, like, what do you do when you're the one who avoids? But do you even know that you avoid the conflict? Is it if someone who avoids is an avoider? Do they know that they are to be that type, or is it something like that? the other spouse would notice?
Yeah, well, maybe that's why we're bringing this up, that people get to realize what type of person they are. Are they this type of person or that type of person? Do they practice silence?
So which type are you, right? Like out there, right?
Yeah, that's a question for everyone
Right.
to answer.
Right, exactly.
And that's why we're bringing these points up. But there are other challenges also to healthy communication to resolve a conflict. One of those challenges is the interruptions. Like when we talked about how that you want to make your point, make your case, and you get interrupted, so you are unable to continue presenting what you want to talk about because the other person has something in mind and he or she wants to jump in and interrupt the talk. That's why we talk about.
I hope you're not talking about me. I'm sorry, Abuna.
No, never.
It's just for the show, for the ratings.
No. What I'm talking about is the fact that when people are in such situations, sometimes they are not willing to listen. And listening is very big thing in the communication process. It's not, we think that communication is all about talk, but listening has a big part of it. That when someone is talking, let us listen, so that when we listen and we listen actively and try to understand and make sure that we got the message right, then we can continue. That's why there is also another challenge to healthy communication during disputes, which is the misinterpretation, the misunderstandings, that I would not get the right message from the person in front of me. My spouse would say something and I would not understand it right. And believe me, there is so much of the disputes and fights in marriage because of the misunderstanding.
And they don't even know what they're fighting about because they don't understand.
They didn't understand each other. And then it goes to, it's escalated to a level where there are shoutings and insults and things like that. And it's all because they did not understand each other. They did not give room to listen. They were not slow to speak and slow to wrath, and they were not swift to listen. That's why we always encourage people to please listen to each other. And I would put it now, since we are talking about couples, but I will bring also the children in the picture, that if there are children, please listen to them also. Because we hear complaints about the fact that the children are not listening to us. Are you listening to them? And then the same challenge between the husband and wife. Are you listening to your wife?
Active listening. I like that.
Listening. We got to talk about the listening and the active listening. There should be another episode about that by
Absolutely.
itself. But
there's some people you talk to them right directly, like you're talking to them and they're giving you full eye contact, like this, and you fully communicated. You got to believe this. You communicate your points completely clear, and they process like maybe 3 to 4% of what you've just said, but they're listening. They're hearing you. They're hearing, but they're not listening.
We're going to get into.
We got to have an episode about this.
Because
Honey, what do you think?
This is what we call selective listening, or there is so much.
We need to talk about strategies for that too, Abuna, if we can, like how to break through to the selective listeners.
Well, actually, well, we need first understand what is the active listening is all about.
Let's please.
But that's another.
Producers, CYC, active listening, selective hearing. We need a whole thing on that.
Okay, should we continue about
Yes,
these
please,
issues?
Abuna.
I'm actively listening to you now, Abuna. Please.
Yeah, I like this because
We have 4 points so far.
we talked about the right time and the right place.
Oh, that's 5. 5.
Okay, and we talked about avoiding communication completely, which, and we talked also about interruptions. We talked about misinterpretations, and many times lead to escalations that because they don't understand each other what they are saying, so they get mad, they get angry, and they don't give time to really process what was said to them. Okay, and there is also one big challenge in such situation, that they start to attack each other personally, and in a way where they intend to humiliate each other or insult each other. This is, and all these things are not Christian, and that's not what God's children should be doing. And that's why we're saying this, because we need to remember that and we cannot humiliate each other. We cannot exchange insults.
Like to bring them down, you mean?
Bring them down, insult them, or insult their families, or our in-laws, or anything like that. That's not Christian. And or insult the person's intelligence or what he or she is doing. We cannot do that, because we have to keep in mind that in every relationship, the two basic things are love and respect. And these two things should be always there. So if I start, it's not a good thing to interrupt each other, because there is no respect in that. It's not healthy to humiliate each other, because there is no respect in that. And there's no love.
Right.
If I love someone, I would not put him or her down. I would respect them and show my love to him. The same thing with all the other issues, like if I try to avoid the communication completely, it's not healthy, because there is no respect in that, and it doesn't show love or care to the other party. Or the interruptions, the same thing. And with all these things, we talked about escalation, where people are going to exchange insults, shout at each other, cause so many things to not only verbal, it might even turn into more than just verbal insults.
Yeah. I find even with that, like when it escalates to that point, even though you might have a good point, you might have a good message, but because there's anger and because there's fire, you know, your message gets lost, and it's too bad, because it's like you could be progressing to another level with your partner.
This is so beautiful. I love this. You reminded me of one of the statistics that talks about the verbal and non-verbal communications. The message, the core message, the words of the message forms only 7%. The words, if you have a message you want to say, forms 7%. The face expression and the voice, the what you call, the tone of the voice, and the way you say it, and the body language form the rest 93%. Believe it or not, 55% the body language, and I think 38% the remaining of the tone of the voice and the facial expressions, which is, but the message itself, as you said, it might be good message, but if you say it in a bad way, if you're screaming, shouting, the person in front of you is unable to hear you, because he is hearing a bigger message from the body language, from the facial language, from the tone of the voice. There are people who, once a person starts screaming, the other person becomes deaf, cannot hear anything, even if you giving a verse from the Bible. They're not going to listen to it, because the person is shouting and screaming. And there are so many people who get hurt deeply when this takes place. So all these things, thank you for bringing this point, because it's very important. And of course, this is part of the major topic of communication, that it's not only the words, but the tone of the voice, the expressions of the face, and the body, the whole body language. If a little child, you approach him and you're trying to say the most beautiful words, but you're frowning in his or her face, she's going to cry. But maybe you don't say anything, but just smile. The baby will not be afraid of you. So it depends on how you approach the person with the message that you have. It's not only the words, the content of the message, but the expressions of the face, the tone of the voice, the body language. One last thing, I don't know if we have time for that or not, which is pursuing. And what I like in this video that we've watched, that when the wife saw that the husband is mad and he threw the remote control and got up, she called him, wait, we need to talk. And at that moment, he said to her, I don't think I can talk now, and maybe never. So she said, no, please, we need to talk, we have to talk. So she pursued the situation, but in a healthy way. But there is bad pursuing, which is, we have to talk now, I'm not going to let you go, but we have to finish it now, and that's not healthy. The healthy thing is that we make sure that we will find time to talk about it. But if you insist on talking about something where the other person is so angry, you're not going to end up with good results. You're going to regret the day that you did this, that you insisted on solving or tackling the issue now. It's better that we postpone it until we feel much better. We are not that angry, and we can collect our thoughts and express ourselves in a healthy way.
Thank you, Abuna. And thank you very much for all these things to look out for, keep in mind in communication with our wife, with our spouses, and in general. I think you gave us 6 points, and in the addition of last week's, we touched on it, this time, 7 real points of things to be mindful of. So thanks again, Abuna. Thank you,
Abuna.
Sarah. And we will catch you guys next time on another episode of CYC for Couples Only.